This is the second studio, hosted by two architects, myself, David Lee, and Marina Bordelrone. This week is the two of us in an after-hours conversation. And I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll figure it out. That's how these things go, right?
Yep.
Sponsors. If you need to get 2D or 3D as-built of a project, then you should check out Canvas, an iPhone and iPad app. Here's how it works. Using Canvas, you scan the house, and then Canvas processes the scan to produce the as-built automatically, so you don't have to do any measuring. The file formats include ArchiCAD, Revit, AutoCAD, Vectorworks, SketchUp, and others. Canvas has been a great tool for us, and I know many of you will find it helpful, so check them out by visiting canvas.io/SSP or click the link in our show notes to schedule a demo and get your first as-built for free. Stop juggling multiple pieces of software and struggling with design-unfriendly spreadsheets. Programma, built by designers for designers, provides an integrated suite of tools for every phase of your project, from mood boards to advanced specification tools, procurement tracking to project management. Seamlessly integrated, easily shareable, and always current, Programma reduces redundancy and minimizes costly errors. Join InterDesign movers and shakers by starting for free at programma.design/secondstudio. Experience the difference with Programma, software built for InterDesign workflows.
If you're looking for an ultra-fast and robust BIM computer program for architecture and or interior design, then we suggest you check out ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD leads the industry by enabling architecture and interior design firms around the world to 3D design, supported by innovative technology that expands as far as the imagination can stretch. As ArchiCAD continues to evolve with technological advances, architects can push that technology to their advantage while working in an accurate model. We absolutely love ArchiCAD, and you can try the program for free, fully functioning, if you click the link in our episode notes.
This is the second studio, also known as the Sleepy Podcast. The podcast that is recorded and listened to when everyone is very, very sleepy. I
come you're so sleepy.
I cannot remember the last time I've been this tired. In this moment, for the second of speaking, I'm fairly awake, but I think it's only going to last about 30 seconds. I took a nap this afternoon. That's how tired I was. I woke up from the nap. I felt fairly energized for all of 5 minutes and then really tired again. So I would say just in general this day, the last 2 days, a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, it's been very tired. No, but the last 48 hours, has it only been 48 hours? All of Friday, Saturday. Yeah. Okay, so it's been maybe 60 hours or something. I don't remember since when something happened. No, seriously, I'm tired.
I'm usually pretty good. Even if I don't sleep much, or I don't sleep well, or I do a lot, I'm tired, but I usually kind of can still put it off and be semi
there's
there.
The extra gear you can
and
go into.
Today I would just fall like a dead leaf on the floor and pass out. So
it's like you're one of those, those kids. I guess it's a toy.
How do you call those?
I don't know, but it's how does it work, actually?
I
know how it works. Go ahead.
I had one. I think that was a giraffe or something.
I feel like it's always a giraffe.
It's like a wooden toy, the giraffe that was cut into chunks.
Wooden?
And the chunks, I think so.
Wow.
And the chunks were assembled on a thicker piece of...
elastic string.
I don't know if it was elastic.
Yeah.
Or if it was just like a nylon thread or something.
No, it's elastic. It wouldn't work.
It was sitting on a little pedestal, and you push at the underside, the bottom of the pedestal, and the giraffe would just collapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is elastic because it's basically a rubber band type of thing, elastic string, right? That compresses, and see, there's forces involved in architecture, and it holds all the pieces. No, but I don't
think it needs to be elastic because it's in tension. If you release the tension, it doesn't have to be an elastic.
Yeah, but the tension only works if it's elastic. Yes, you could have normal string and tension.
Yeah.
But as soon as you push it, it wouldn't revert back to its shape. You'd have to manually re-put it back.
No, because it's all attached to that button. I'm not sure it was elastic.
It's 100% elastic.
No, because I probably would have tried to pull on it, and it would have
You can't pull on it because the bottom is flush or recessed into the base of the podium.
But when it's when she collapsed.
When you collapse, you're pushing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could pull on it if you wanted to, but no one ever does because they're in awe of the collapsing. No, it's a rubber band.
I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh.
No,
okay,
I'm not sure.
Let's look this up. Pushing, I'm going to Google
I'm
it.
not sure because I do think it's all about the tension. She only stands up straight because there is tension in the thing. If it was elastic, how would you have any tension?
What the fuck are you talking about? Where's that rubber band?
No, but tension in standing up. Like, how would that even work?
Because there's like individual pieces that are stacked like these pencils, right? And when there's, let's say, a rubber band going through that, and I'm pulling on the rubber band, this piece is being sucked down, so it stays stable. As soon as you push up, I don't think
mine was a rubber band. Sorry.
Well, yours was also made of wood, so you probably had some kind of like wheat yarn used to hold up the thing since you grew up in the countryside of forest. Mine was made of, an acrylic stretchy band and plastic.
Anytime there is some sort of like pillow that's kind of a beigey color or linen, you call that
I've said it on here before, but you
call that wheat, and I don't understand.
You bought like these cover sheets, or I don't know what you call it. Like when I grew up, there was a bed, and there was a mattress, and then there's a blanket and a pillow. That's it. Now things are very complex. There's like these layers. There's the cover sheet. There's like duvets, top sheets,
comfy.
under sheets, above sheets, side sheets,
top
pillows, side pillows, decorative pillows. It's and then there's the elastic. It's so complicated. But you bought this set, and it's very rough on the skin.
It's not. It's
now it's
cotton.
not because I've worn it in. I took sandpaper to it when you weren't looking. 900 grit and wear it down. But for the first time, I was like sleeping in a bale of hay. I'm like, this must have been your childhood or something. I don't know why you would want this.
No, I had a comforter. I had a what do you call it? A
blanket is what it's called.
The duvet cover.
Yeah.
That was pink with elephant heads on it. That was my favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no wheat involved. There was no hay.
When you bought, there was definitely some kind of wheat involved. Some kind of field of wheat that was woven into some kind of potato sack.
Wait, so it's organic. It's natural. It's there's no weird stuff in it. Think about that.
I'm all about the weird stuff. It could be all the weird stuff.
I know. We had eaten bananas that were grown in your parents' backyard, and you refused to eat them. And I was like, well, would you rather eat bananas that come from who knows when, that have been cut when they were not ripe, that was transported across the universe? And you're like, yes.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't trust things that are... It's just
things that you've grown yourself.
Yeah,
it makes no sense at all.
Well, I mean...
Think about all the shit that they inject, all the food that we buy. I mean, this is like... And how it gets transported, touched, and packed, and I mean, it's...
it's familiar.
No.
It just sounds like food. No, I mean, homegrown stuff is great, obviously, but I would happily eat it if the food that we're describing, the banana. Well, there's two things. One, I don't like these bananas because they're apple bananas, which people do love.
Oh, they're
generally.
delicious. What are you talking
but
about?
But they're small.
They taste like they're apple blueberry bananas. It's incredible.
They taste like what?
Apple and blueberry.
Yeah, I don't want bananas to taste like apples and blueberries.
But I mean, they don't really taste like apple and blueberry. They just kind of like have a little hint of it.
So they're short. Chubby, not chubby, but they're just
perfect size.
They're tiny bananas, which is it's weird. I mean, it's like eating. It's just weird.
What?
I don't like it. It's weird.
Oh.
And then you bite into it, right? And it's kind of tangy. And I want a banana that tastes tangy. I don't need that. I just need a normal banana, right? So they're short, strange. That's strike one. They're tangy, strike two, and they're ultra green or ultra brown, I feel like. I don't think I've ever seen them yellow.
Yeah, but the inside is fine.
Yeah, but I'm not going to eat a green banana or a brown banana.
Yeah, but when you open them, they're fine, even if they're brown. So what does it matter?
Well, okay, 2.5 strikes. It's still too many strikes.
Yeah, you see, you haven't thought about it through.
Yeah, I don't. I just it's creepy. But I would eat like normal bananas. I would eat tomatoes for sure, strawberries, like whatever you could grow in the garden. I would eat it. If they're at a homegrown garden, if it was a proper garden that maybe had some kind of box around it and the soil was like a nice, rich, dark brown and things were lush and it was sunny outside. But these bananas are just growing in the corner of someone's suburban house, like in dirt, and there's raccoons and possums running around. Like, I don't want to eat that banana. I want to eat a banana that's in a nice,
But the banana doesn't even come out from the ground. It's like perched on a tree.
Yeah, but still the dirt it comes from is just corner lot dirt in a typical suburban house.
Well, you don't want to know how they grow your industrial produce that you buy at the grocery store.
In a nice big garden.
No, under a tent and plastic, and they like fill it with like,
with superfoods.
Yes. No, they fill it with whatever. They fill it with pesticides. They fill it with a bunch of like, what you call it, like trash from like local places and all of that stuff. Yeah, they don't feed it with the good stuff.
Who's feeding it with trash?
A lot of places.
Well, that's not good. But at least it's familiar. Actually, I was talking to someone recently, talking about sad things or things that are messed up with our society and how things are sold to us. Oh, I'm going to misquote it because the guy told me this and I was really tired. Shit, what was it? I might be conflating two things. But there's two things he told me on the subject of sustainability, because this was an architect and I was talking to him about it. He said that the LEED certification, LEED organization, damn it, I didn't remember that. But it was created by someone or something, and it was funded by something. Basically, it was created just to make people think that they're doing something good and a way to market something. But in fact, the whole point system and most of what it does is because it's meaningless. The other thing too, and we all know LEED is easy to achieve,
and wrong in that, but yeah.
Well, I think there's two aspects. One is that it's the motivation for it being created was not as pure as it wanted to have been, and also a lot of the objectives and goals and standards they set are kind of just not great. It's not enough.
Oh, we know it's not enough. But, yeah.
And so it's this kind of false point system that whatever person's put out there as a way to, I don't know if it's a red herring, as something, right? The other thing too, in terms of, I guess, recycling, the blue bin recycling, I think maybe it came around maybe in the early 2000s, but there's a big push to have these little blue bins with the recycle logo. Blue is now the color of recycle, and blue bins is where you recycle. You put all your stuff in your blue bins, all your paper and plastic and all that stuff. I guess the campaign for that, or some part of that, was funded by, who was it? The BP oil company. And now or then or something, basically like 95% of the plastics that are recycled, they don't get recycled. So it's all just, the majority of it is just a sham. It's just a fake. It's a fake thing.
It's America.
That someone created for other motives. It was funded by an oil company for other motives. And to which I said to him, I said, well, that's depressing. I guess I'll just keep recycling, though. I don't know what to do with that information. So.
And some places, apparently, even if you do the recycling, separate your trash, they still mix it all up once it gets to the trash facility, and then gets resorted out. It's like, well, what's the point then?
The point is to do people into thinking that they're doing something right when it's not really having an effect. Yeah. I'm not saying people shouldn't recycle, because I don't know, I guess we still should. I feel like at least something happens. If it's 1% of it, that's better than 0%. I don't know. But there are a lot of things that make zero sense, and it's just a result of like the overlaying of different agencies and groups and governments and parties and lobbyists and people trying to get to something, and money and all that kind of stuff. It's always the case. It's always been the case. It's more the case now than before. But anyway, so elastic band toys growing disgusting tiny bananas in the corner of backyards. And being tired. That's basically been the last couple of weeks. No, we are very tired, because the last 2 weeks I've been out of town. Last 2 weekends I've been out of town. And the weekends, it's difficult to be out of town during the weekends. Why? Because I typically work on the weekends. And so I operate right at that threshold of being productive, okay? And just having enough rest to be productive. Be very productive. I'm right there, right? The problem with that is that as soon as anything... it's like going down slope on a road bike at 100 miles an hour, and you're like, just, it's pure efficiency. But the problem with that is you hit the tiniest pebble, it fucks things up. And I would describe these 2 weekends of going out of town as 2 pebbles I've hit. So now I'm that toy that you squish. I'm on the side of the road, mangled with my road bike somewhere else beyond me. So that's the reason, right? Small little road trips, which are more exhausting than you might think. More recently, the last few days, we were out of town for some thesis reviews, which was actually a lot of fun.
It was, yeah, it was fun.
But, it's like all day Friday was packed with meetings and stuff. And then you drive for 4 hours, 3.5 hours somewhere, get in, met up with some friends, which was a lot of fun. And all of us are adults. We're all very busy people. We have our own businesses. Everyone's generally tired anyway, right? I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast are like, yeah, I get it. I'm tired too. I'm an employee and I'm tired.
They're yawning as they're listening to this.
Exactly. Which is good because you should be just a sleepy time. So we go out with these folks. We're having dessert because we couldn't have dinner. We didn't want to have drinks, whatever. We're having dessert. We were out until like midnight. And I think all 4 of us were like, how did we end up being out until midnight? Why did we do this to ourselves?
I had 6 hours of sleep that night. And I'm like, I was like, why did we do that?
I have to talk. I'm sure they feel the same way. It was a great visit. Obviously it was a great visit because we hung out for like 5 hours talking, but I'm sure at the end of it, everyone was like, what just happened? Why did we do that?
And the hotel we stayed at, the bed and the pillows were actually, I found them really good. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could take full advantage of this, get like the 8-9 hours sleep situation. No, it did not happen.
But what's weird is that other times when I get 6 hours of sleep a night, I'm not great, but I'm okay. Like I'm okay the next day. I feel tired, but I'm like, okay, this is like my norm. It feels normal. But this time, comfy bed, about 6 hours of sleep. Woke up the next day for the reviews.
Well, you had more like 8.
But... It was at 8. For whatever reason, I felt horrible. I was not recovered at all. And I stopped drinking coffee like maybe a decade ago now for various reasons. Had to have coffee. It's the only way I made it through that day was coffee. And the whole day I was off. The reviews, I think I did okay. It took me a minute to kind of get into the speed of the reviews, which we can talk about. But any kind of social interactions between reviews, I was so off. My brain was not firing. I struggled
in the evening at dinner. I had a really hard time listening, making conversation.
Yeah, I think actually a lot of people that we had, because all the critics had a dinner, so there's maybe like 14 of us at the table.
17.
17? Wow. And I think everyone was tired. You could kind of tell.
Yeah.
It was a great dinner, but still. The reviews. So you give a description of reviews, right?
I give a description of the reviews?
Yeah, give a description of the reviews. I'm tired of talking.
What do you mean?
Huh?
What do you mean?
This is what happened.
Well, it was just a thesis review. So it was for the whole School of Architecture for 5th year. And it was divided into different groups. Mm-hmm. And there was a morning session and an afternoon session. Each session was about, 5 or 8 students maybe. Yeah. And, they each had half an hour or so. Mm-hmm. There was 4 critics in each of those reviews, and that was that. I mean, it was pretty interesting. I have to say, every time I'm being dragged back into an architecture school, I'm like, why? I left. I finished. I completed my stuff. I graduated. I left it. Why am I being brought back so many times?
Because you're wanted.
But it was actually, it was really fun, and it was kind of cool to see again, some student projects, just because it's not the type of stuff that you see every day when you work on actual projects. So it's kind of refreshing to see a bit more of crazy ideas, bigger ideas, and how other people think, honestly. Yeah. So that was good. In terms of the work itself, I mean, there was good projects, great projects, less good projects. It was kind of a mix, which is to be expected.
You're really painting a really dynamic story that I'm being sold into.
I mean, I don't really know what you want me to say here.
I don't know either. This is a sleepy podcast. So no, the reviews was quite long. So I don't know how. Well, I would say all undergraduate schools do it differently at the end of the year, right? But thesis, for anyone who's listening who has no idea what thesis is, typically the final year in a Bachelor of Architecture school, You spend the entire year working on one project, and it's a thesis project. Technically, it's not really thesis because thesis is reserved for like master's programs or PhD programs. So it's sort of like a miniature thesis, but nevertheless, it's a full year for a project. So the projects are meant to be very significant and important things for the students, and the work itself is supposed to be significant and important for them, and then also for the career for the profession and the study of architecture. There's some kind of contribution being made to architecture itself, to that body of knowledge.
Oh, I don't know about that, but sure.
It's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, I don't think anyone ever thinks about it that way.
Oh, no, but well, the faculty do, and some of the students do.
Yeah,
no,
I don't think anyone ever think about that, actually. I don't think students think about like, oh, I'm going to contribute to architecture by doing my little thesis project. No, this was my last project. I need to whip out something cool, graduate, get out of here. Like,
okay, sure, there's a spectrum of students, right? But that's the goal that is set for students. Whether or not people get there is one thing. Most people don't, because that's really hard. That's a big ask. But you're striving for that level of execution, that level of thinking and scope. Like it's a big deal, is what I'm saying. Okay, these were formal critiques, and 3 days in a row. We didn't do all 3 days, obviously, but the day started at 9, and then we had an hour break for lunch in the middle, and then it went until 6:30 because it ran over by a little bit. So from 9 to 6:30, all you do is look at work. Students present their work, and you give feedback for 8.5 hours. That is a long day. And anyone who sat on a review as a critic, you know how much brain energy it takes to be a critic, to be a semi-decent one, or to try to be a decent one, right? It's surprisingly exhausting. It takes a lot of energy, even for teachers. Like, there are some pretty heavy hitters as critics there. Been doing this a long time. They've built-in stamina over the years, right? Even for them, everyone's wiped out by the end of the day, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And I actually think that students would benefit from being critics to understand the other side of it, not just the physical kind of tiredness that takes place, but to view the work from that lens.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'll keep talking. So what happened was we both go to this thing, right? You were on the fence, clearly sort of excited, not really excited. The thing that pushed you over the edge was that as we were reviewing the itinerary for the day, which I didn't bother because I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show up and I'm just going to be whatever. The schedule of the reviewers, you realize the night before we left that for the first... the first thing you saw was that we were not going to be together as critics.
Did you know that?
And I said, again, I didn't read it. I don't care what the schedule is. Make no difference. I just show up and just say some random stuff and then bounce.
Yeah, I was like, well, we got invited. Oftentimes people want the duo. So I was like, okay, fine. And then I look at the list. I'm like, wait a minute here. We're not in the same room. We're not in the same group. I'm like, what is that? I don't know the other people. Like, I'm not an academic. Like, I don't have any academic contribution I can, bring to students. And
really sell yourself for future. Yeah. Is this your plan to so no one invites you in the future?
Exactly. And sometimes with academic critics, it's just like academic talk and references and this and that and theory and whatever. And I'm not really that kind of person anymore. I mean, I could get into that if I'm very interested in it. But a lot of time I found that critics who are a little too academic, it's not my cup of tea. So I was not super excited when I saw that. But in the end, it actually was a really good group of reviewers. I
want to backtrack to the moment in which you learned that we were not going to be on the same panel together. Because I wish I would have filmed you, because you're sitting in a chair, you're upright, looking at your phone, and then you read that, and then you deflate, very much like that little toy. You're like, oh, your phone drops. You're like, you're just like that toy. You're contorted. Your head's off to the side, and you're like, oh man. I want to go. It's like, what are you, 5? What is this? You're like laying on the floor. No, I don't want to go anymore.
That's not true.
And then you're like, one eye's open. You're like, oh wait, it's just the first half of the day. Okay, I guess I can go.
No, but it's also it's intimidating too, because I don't teach. I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't want to sound dumb, and also I'm not a public speaker.
Oh man!
So I was like, oh no, what is that going to be like? And at the end of the day, no, it was fine.
It was. I actually
maybe prefer not doing a critic with you.
I agree.
Because you cut me off, and it's like, I know I'm going to get cut off by David Lee when I say something to his students, where I won't get cut off by the other reviewer if David Lee is not there. So, yeah. And then you do that thing again where you just like piggyback on what I said and make it sound like smarter and longer, and I'm like, but this is what I just said. So it really annoys me. I'm like, yeah, no, but you took my line here.
I actually liked being separated, because you and I we're like always around each other. I don't need to hear what you have to say.
And we usually think the same thing, so it's kind of redundant in some way. So if you invite us for critics, don't invite the both of us.
Just invite Marina. It's fine. So yeah, we were split in the morning, together in the afternoon. I did prefer being split because, like you said, I already know what you're thinking. You know what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I know you were avoiding me at lunch too.
Just to be, I wanted to talk to different people. People are like, this guy's a dick. I also find, though, I'm kind of surprised during the reviews you're not as not so succinct. That's not the word. You're not blunt is just too blunt. You're not saying what you're thinking, because I know what you're thinking, and you don't say that. You say some other weird, like, kind of sugar-coated version of it that's nicely wrapped up into a little, like, Christmas present. And I'm like, just say it. Just say it. Say it. Say it.
I said everything I wanted to say.
You know that it sucks. Just say that it sucks.
No, but there is I would say things maybe more bluntly if the student was arrogant and the work was total shit. If the student is not arrogant, the work is shit, but you could tell that, maybe they're not just meant for that. Like, it's the last day anyway. Like, what's going to happen? It's kind of too late.
There's a difference between it being like a mid-review versus final.
So,
But at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I sugarcoat anything. I think I was trying to be normal in how I was presenting what I had to say.
You could be a little... I know that you're thinking like 5 different pieces of feedback to give. And
that's
you
also why
only
I didn't care about being
them.
paired with you at a review, because I was like, I'm gonna get my own review of my own performance afterwards, and I'm like, fuck that. You know what? I did my own thing in the morning. Don't have to be told it was good, it was bad, you should have done this, you should have done that. Nope, it was just me.
So you went from really wanting to be together to freaking out because we weren't together to now you want to be on your own. No, but it's true. But I can tell. I know. But it's not just you too. It's the other critics, right? Like, we all see some of the projects. Sometimes it's really evident. It's like, okay, there's 5 things that are missing from this, but everyone chooses to not talk about those 5 things. And sometimes it makes sense. You have to be strategic with what you're saying for a productive outcome. But I do feel in general, though, like, there should be much more transparency with the students, and you tell them the 5 things. Don't withhold information from them.
But I told them everything I wanted to tell them. I mean, I could have been more blunt or more mean, but that was not part of what I thought was necessary to deliver what I had to say. So,
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you like, if it was in the middle of the project and we had a review, I probably would have been way more direct, because there was still time for them to like pivot and correct and change things. But again, this is the end. They're graduating, they're gonna like go to work. So if anything, like, you kind of want to encourage them in some ways to get excited about something rather than like blame them for the shit they haven't done for that day.
So I have a slightly different stance on this, that says folks might not be surprised by my saying that. I get it. There's the emotional kind of personal self-confidence aspect, and you don't want to just like shit on someone's shit right before they're about to graduate. And it's supposed to be fun times. Like, I've finished 5 years. It's a time to celebrate, right? And you don't want to be the downer. However, I don't know. I'm more for honesty than I am for anything else. And like, if the work is not good, they should know it's not good. Because in my view, also, it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. They spent a whole year doing a project. They don't do good work. And by the way, also, I think the types of feedback students get should be different depending on clearly how much effort was put in. So that's another factor in here that should be said. So like if there's a student who produced a lot of work and it's very clear they worked hard, but it's not good work, the review goes a certain way or should go a certain way. Because I'm first and foremost, hard work, even if it's bad work, you should be rewarded for that. If it's bad work and the amount of effort they put in was mediocre, okay, we need to have a conversation then. And so in that case, I don't like the idea that a student has spent 5 years in school, spent an entire year in a project to produce something mediocre, and then the jury's afraid to tell them it is in fact mediocre because we want them to be happy on celebration on graduation day, because that you're lying to the student. The student then thinks or has been reaffirmed or affirmed by outside critics who have been flown in or paid to come to campus, and now they're saying like, well, yeah, it's good for you. That's a fucking lie. No, it's not.
Yeah,
why would you let the student know that?
I don't think we said anything like there's one guy who was particularly bad. I don't think anyone told him like what he had was
no,
good.
he was everyone knew it was bad. He knew it was bad. But I'm saying is that there's in general this, I think, like critics probably across the board could be just more direct with students, and there's no need to like be so sensitive to them. Like these are adults. And also I do think that students are a lot smarter than, honestly, I think a lot of teachers give them credit. Smarter in the sense that they know whether or not their work is good or bad. They know whether or not they put in the effort and tried really hard or they didn't. And they know these things. After 5 years of school, you just know these things. Are there some students who just don't get it? Absolutely, but that's only like 5% of the students. The 95% of the students, they know it. And I think by not acknowledging what they know and what we know, it's just like, I don't know why we're doing this. What is this circle? We're like dancing around this thing in the middle, and we can't talk about the thing in the middle because they're meant to be happy, go be happy because you're graduating. But I also take
But you didn't give them. You didn't say that either to any of them when the work was mediocre. Yeah, you know.
I would say in the afternoon, I was probably the more direct person. I was the least afraid to say things that I don't know. You be the critic of me. When I was there in the afternoon session, of the 4 or 5 of us, from what I saw from my perspective, I probably was least afraid of saying things that were, I wouldn't say they were upsetting to the students, but their critiques. They were things like, this is the thing you should have done differently or could have done differently, right? And I was also very careful very often not to say you should have done this, because then it sounds like because then that sounds mean. I always say, I package it in a weird way, like it could be this or architecture could be this, but clearly what I'm saying is you should have done that. But I don't say that. And I myself am doing this weird dance just to like be nice. But I would say in the afternoon session amongst the panel, I was probably the one that was the most willing to get to that edge.
Yeah, a little bit, but not like by a whole lot. I mean,
okay, well that's sort of, we're proving each other's points in a certain way. But this is what I'm saying though, right? Like we, myself included, have to do this kind of dance thing. And I just, I want to go to the center of the hole. I don't know what we're doing by going around it. It's odd. Like we all know it. We all see it. It's obvious. It's there on the wall.
But the truth is that out of like the number of students we saw that day, there's probably 2 that did like a great job.
Oh, wow.
No, but it's true. No, but it's true.
We were in different sessions. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, still, yeah.
But you also have very high standards.
What?
You also have very high standards.
Well, I came from an education where you do fail. You do not graduate despite having done all the work for 5 years. And I had 7 critics at my thesis presentation, people I had never met before that were not particularly nice. And my diploma depended on these people.
Can you give me an example of something? This is a while ago now, so you probably don't remember. But give me an example of something they said. You also have to translate to English.
No, I don't remember the specific. I just moved on.
Okay, let me ask you this then.
But I remember that they were focusing on things that were like not important for the project, not the big picture stuff. And I remember feeling that I had worked really hard for a whole year on my project, and the guy after had not, barely showed up to some of the classes, whipped out some cool perspective, and blew the mind of the 7 reviewers I just had. Mm-hmm. And that just pissed me off.
Okay, there's that though, but the feedback itself sounds like maybe the critics, according to you, were not the greatest critics, but the tenor of the feedback and the words they were using, right? Forget the content of the feedback, but how they delivered the feedback and what they said. How would you describe it relative to the reviews we were a part of? Let's say the reviews we were a part of on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the nicest of nice, 10 being like the harshest of harsh. But let's just say, we'll throw a random number out there, that the reviews we were a part of, everyone was at like a 3.5. What was the ones in France? Yeah, the one in France
were like 8 or 9.
Well, I'd like to know what they said.
But I mean, the high standards, no, not really. I mean, if you go to a thesis review, you've worked on a project for a year, and it's in an architecture school, you're expecting to see oftentimes an architecture project. You're expecting to see not one board. Like I had to produce 5 boards for my presentation, right? Because you're talking about a whole year project, so you have a lot of documents, you have a lot of things to explain. You probably have done research and reverted back and did iteration and changed your mind and all of that stuff. So it's a lot. It should be a lot of information.
I will say that,
and I've never really been impressed to any reviews I've ever been, honestly, by the work of the students. I have to say this time there is a couple of students that really had it well put together. Like the graphics were well done. The presentation was probably better than any I've ever done, in terms of like starting point, process, questions.
Let me guess that those presentations were slideshows, though.
And they were, yeah.
But see, that's also
and it is a different format, and it does produce something different than when you have panels that you have to interact with and look at an audience on the other side and remember where you put your stuff. And it's like if you had like cards in your hand and you're reading one card at a time, or you had them all on the table and you have to remember like where is the stuff you've written.
Yeah, I think there's an art to putting together large boards and to give a presentation, and it's kind of a lost art form. And if it's not really the way things happen, because everyone has iPads and iMacs and projector screens, and that's how presentations are done. But slideshow presentations allow the presenter, or in this case students, to really both create a very strong narrative, but also therefore hide behind the narrative. And you end up going through these slides, you're like, wow, it's a great narrative. But at the end of it, like, where's the fucking building?
It's also kind of a cheat in captivating the audience. Yeah. Because you are staring at the screen rather than looking at a person in front of you, facing you, looking at you. Like it's a little bit of a different interaction.
What I was saying before is, I thought some of the work was pretty good, but most of it, as we talked about the other day, the vast majority, they didn't feel like thesis projects to me. They felt like just another project. Like I'm like, this could be a 3rd or 4th year project. Like this doesn't feel any different. Like I distinctly remember from my time, but in more recent times at other schools as well, like thesis projects, when you go there and you see them, you're like, you can feel that's a thesis project. You can feel this is 9 months worth of work pinned up on a wall. 9 months of work on a wall. You feel it through the quantity of the work, the volume of the work, the quality, the detailedness. You can see it in the person too. It's like a very evident thing. This person is communicating to me 9 months of their hard work, and they want to show me 9 months of work and what they've discovered, what they've done. It's palpable. This time, it's just another project. It wasn't just a work too, to be honest. It was a lot of the way that it was presented. It's like, yeah, here's my project. No. Not, here's my project. This is your final 5th year, 9-month project after being at a B-Arch school. Yeah. Like, where's the fire? Like, there wasn't any. It was kind of like, yeah, here it is. What?
Yeah, what the heck? The energy, and all of that wasn't quite there, which was interesting. Yeah, it's true. A lot of the projects didn't feel like, thesis projects. I mean, when I look back and think about the thesis that we did in school, there was like a big question, right? But not like a generic topic that everybody is picking on right now, because we're all talking about that. There is a big question that comes because of personal interests, because of, I don't know, where you're from or this or that, right? Then you have to kind of define the question. You don't just pick a topic and go from there. Like you find your question, and that's what you're trying to answer.
Yeah.
And then the project itself, I mean, in my school, like the thesis project, you had a massive site. So it wasn't just like a little building. Like you had to address the site. You had to address like how you position the building on the site, how you look at the building. And like it was really like a work of scales, because it's a summary of what you've learned for 4 years, right? And you've done projects that were more on like, kind of like the urban scale. You had projects that were like much more like smaller than that and more palpable than that. And that project is supposed to kind of summarize everything you've learned into one in some ways, right? And just prove that you've learned all those things.
And even beyond that, because as you said,
and beyond that, there is also a research aspect to the thesis project because of that specific site and that specific question you came up with, which might have come from the site, might not have come from the site, and you're kind of like trying to relate the two. And that question that's floating, you're trying to answer it. So you're doing research, you're doing reading, you're doing like, I don't know, you're going out in the streets and interviewing people or doing like little documentaries or whatever to understand where you're going. And then you're trying to tie everything together. A lot of the projects we see in fifth year anywhere, I feel like it's much more of, here's another architecture project. And there's no big questions. There is no like wrapping up all the things you've learned. There is no... The research is, again, kind of like Wikipedia level of research. It's not like thesis research. Like if you had to write a paper about your project, your thesis project, that's what your research is about. It's not about data.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree that they felt like just kind of generic projects, and a lot of times conceptually not any better than a typical project. Yeah. Even as a typical fourth year project, like not great. Like, where's the idea? Where's your concept? Where's your thesis for a small thesis for a normal project? Like, where's your statement? Where's the thing? And in addition to that, the conceptual idea, the question, where's your question, though? You don't have a question. Every project should have a question. Yeah. In addition to that, where's the outcome? So you're missing both sides, and we're supposed to be like,
where's the outcome? And if you have the outcome, is that actually answering the question?
Yeah, of course. Those are the two halves, right? And I don't feel that it makes sense that in those types of projects, and not all students are that way, there's some ones that were quite stellar, but in those situations that we're only allowed to talk about the positives of the project or what it could become as positives. No, let's talk about the problems too. Yes, is it too late to talk about it in a sense because they're done? Yeah, but they're going to go off into the world, and I also take it very seriously. Like the emotional component of other students, like one thing, but I also take it very seriously because these are going to go out and they're going to become architects. Like they're going to go out and produce buildings for other people to be in. They're going to be supposedly asking questions and deriving solutions and creating drawings of buildings for people to live in, work in, play in, infrastructure for all of these things. And if we don't hold ourselves to a standard and really hold ourselves to a standard and tell the students there is a standard, you're not meeting it, then we're doing not just the students, not ourselves, not just the academia, not the profession. We're doing everyone else out there a disservice. So that's the position I come from, and that's like legitimately how I feel about it. So that's why I also get amped up during these things. I'm like, but this is a very serious thing that we do in the world. We keep telling everyone that we're very serious, we're very valuable, we have a lot of value, and yet we can't be honest with ourselves, internally with our own people, for the future people. 100% against that, like totally. And if students these days and the newer generations are not conditioned to have these kinds of discussions, if that's the case, and that's a question, I don't know, if that's the case, then we should assess, right? We should think about, okay, how can we make sure, though, that we maintain the level of rigor and discipline and the standards in a productive way, given this new context of how new students operate kind of mentally, right? That's a question that we would have to solve as educators. But to kind of like just go around that question by being like, well, if they're sensitive, then we have to be sensitive. But they're kids, they're students, right? It's the same thing, I think I was saying the other day, like employers and employees. The way, this might be a weird kind of analogy, but the way I also feel about it is very similar to when COVID ended. A lot of employers were like, you got to come back to the office. And employees were like, I don't want to do that. I'm comfortable at home. I got kids. I don't want to commute, all this kind of stuff. And there was a moment when employers were like, you got to come back at least for 2 or 3 days in the office. And then people came back to the office because they were forced to, begrudgingly, and they were like, yeah, this is actually good for me to get out of the house, go back into the office, see the office people, be collaborative, be productive for like 2 or 3 days. That is an example of someone not knowing what's best for them and the profession. The profession is what I care about the most. And it's the same thing with students. You can't just be like, well, the students want this, so this is how we're going to do it now. I don't agree with that. These are also 18-year-olds.
If your kid wants to eat candy for dinner, you know that candy for dinner is not good for them. And now a little break for our show sponsors. We're supported by Enscape. Enscape is a real-time visualization and VR tool that we personally use and recommend. And the reasons why we like it is that it's fast, realistic, and actually easy to use. The interface is great and they have a good library of components. It also renders in real time, which means that you don't have to waste time waiting for the image to be rendered to see what it's going to look like. It's also a plugin that works with all of the major 3D modeling program, and it's available for Mac and PC. So if you want to up your visualization and rendering game, I think you should look into Enscape. So make sure you click on the Enscape 3D link in our show notes for a free trial.
If you're starting to laser scan your renovation projects for accurate as-builts, you'll want to hear this. Imagine that you've been awarded a big project, but not surprisingly, your client hands over wonky CAD drawings from 17 years ago. No worries. Meet Integrated Projects, or IPX for short. IPX is a scan-to-BIM platform that converts your 3D point cloud file, which is produced from any major LiDAR camera, into standardized BIM and CAD files. The best part is that they lay out the price and turnaround time instantly. That means starting your interior renovation project on the 50-yard line with an accurate set of drawings in 3D and 2D. Click the IPX link in our show notes to launch the platform for free. The Second Studio podcast is made possible by support from Autodesk. Autodesk has been part of the design conversation since 1982, providing the tools that help architects around the globe imagine and create beautifully designed, memorable buildings that people love and admire. Autodesk supports the work of the Second Studio, bringing the architecture community together, sparking curiosity, and leading vibrant interviews with the industry's visionaries and thought leaders. The Second Studio works hard to carry the architecture conversation forward, and Autodesk is proud to support this podcast. Learn more about Autodesk by clicking the link in our show notes. But on the subject of research, it's a really good point, the Wikipedia level research, as you put it.
It's pretty bad. And when you have a student who presents their work for 20 minutes and 10 of them is about reading basically a chart. So they're actually putting a chart into words. It's like the worst thing to listen to. And it's actually not giving me what is the conclusion of this chart. It's just giving me the chart. So now I have to make the conclusion of what is to extract from this chart. And I don't know, when I was in 5th year, we did have classes and we did have to write a memoir, which is not like a memoir, like by yourself and whatever, but it is kind of like a longer format essay on a question, on a thesis in some ways, right? You develop your argument, you find a question and this and that and all of that good stuff. And that was kind of a glimpse to what they do in PhD, like what PhD students do.
Yep.
And that's a class that was part of our 5th year curriculum.
When I was a student, you didn't have a separate class for that. That was part of Studio, but it was a part of Studio. It wasn't an optional thing. And it wasn't like, oh, you could write it, you could not write it. No, you have to write it.
I mean, it was an option for us. Everyone had to have it, but it was a separate class.
Yes, that's the only distinction. We didn't have a separate class. I think having a separate class would have been helpful.
It was a separate class, and it was tutored by an actual PhD student.
Yeah, in our case, it's just the teachers who run it, who a lot of them have at least graduate degrees or something close to PhDs or PhDs. But it's hard, right? Because you're an architect or sure students, you're not an English major, and in our cases, so the writing is poor. Everyone struggles, but even if you don't complete that, the thesis, the writing portion, even if you don't complete it, even if it sucks, even if being forced to do it or attempt it sincerely, I think is like really productive, because I do find that when you're forced to write and talk about your ideas, you can't hide. That's also the thing with architecture I've said before, is that you can hide your argument that you're putting forth can be hidden behind cool graphics. It can be hidden behind any graphics. Because when we look at a picture, drawing, a rendering, a diagram, whatever picture you put in front of me, that conversation can go in 1,000 different directions, depending on the weather of the day almost.
Right.
But when it's words, there's no interpretation. There's no misinterpretation. There's no like, oh, wow, we could go in a bunch of different directions. It's very clear that this is what's being said, and I'm going to talk about exactly what's being said. But I think so having it written down makes a lot of sense. Your point about the research is a really, really good one. So, obviously, like what you do is you do your research, you synthesize that research that becomes the foundation for framing a question or supports the question or supports the answer to the question. Then the design is an expression of all that stuff. The design is an expression of the solution to the question, or it's an expression of the question, right? But that's the train. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. That's kind of how it works. It's a mess when you're doing it. It's not all clean like that, but in the end, that's how it flows. Man, so many people, they showed, like you said, there was like copy and paste raw data that I found online that took me probably a week and a half or 2 weeks to find. Graphicize it, make it look pretty, make it look in pink and green or purple, whatever.
At best.
Put it at best. Sometimes not even that. It's a straight screenshot of something they found online. Put it on a board and then have almost no architecture. And it's like, but you've done part of the first step in a really poor way.
Yeah, I know.
And you didn't do the synthesizing. You didn't do the questioning. You didn't do the answer either. And to your point, then it's on you. Like you said, now I have to be the one to try and understand what is it you're trying to do. What I'm saying also is that in some cases, it's even more than that. You're not even being asked to try and determine what they were trying to do. You're being asked to do it for them because they haven't done it. So there's no trying to figure out what they tried to do. They didn't try to do anything. It's just, we're literally looking at just copy paste research and then some diagrams, some site plan diagram that has it looks like a first draft based on how well it's done. There's no floor plans. There's no elevations. There's no details. There's hardly any other diagrams on top of the site plan thing. The graphics aren't good. There's no building, so to speak. There's one small hand sketch of a building. And I'm here like kind of smacking myself in the head going like, what is happening right now? This is thesis. 9 months of work.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I don't get it. And it's not ground. If someone showed me some of the projects are really heavy in the research and then the building itself is it doesn't really work out. That's actually a pretty common thesis. But in those cases, or the ones I'm thinking of, the research is more legitimate research. And it's like, okay, well, the work happened somewhere, right? That's also going back to the idea, like, as long as work happened, let's talk about the work. If it's 90% research, but you tried your hardest and it's decent research, okay, let's talk about the research. But if it's what I described before,
But I also don't know like how much of the research part of thesis is pushed in school.
Depends on the teacher.
I feel like a lot of times students are probably anxious about, again, getting an idea of like what it is that they're going to be designing. Architecture teacher, most often than not, might feel more comfortable guiding in that direction rather than in the research direction.
The direction of architect. I miss it. The direction of what?
As the first step, guiding a student to go through research rather than like going directly into the architecture portion of it.
They're more comfortable with that or not?
They are, because they're architects.
Wait, so they're more comfortable with research than architecture because they're architects?
They're more no, the opposite. Tired.
Okay.
Tired.
Yeah.
Because research, not everybody does research. Like doing proper research is not simple, and you do not know necessarily how to start, where to start, and where you're heading. So it's a lot more of an unknown path than just like guiding a kid to come up with some sort of architecture idea, right?
I can understand that. So then my question and response is, if that's the case, and I know you're just guessing, but if that's the case, then where's the architecture? Why was not there more architecture?
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know. You tell me.
that's the fucking question, man.
I don't know. They've been digging around for a whole year.
That's
like,
the question,
going to
right?
Parties and having jello shots or whatever they did.
Jello
yeah,
shots?
I don't
Oh, interesting.
What?
Jello shots.
Well, that's what kids in universities do in
How
California.
would you know about Jello shots?
Because I've had some.
Oh my.
It's kind of weird.
Jello shots?
Yeah, it's just they're very strange.
They are
They
strange.
serve them in like those little like mouthwash paper cup things, and
There's some Jello scope.
Yeah, I don't really get it. Yeah, no, it's interesting, but yeah, the thing that shocked me most is like maybe the lack of the lack of investment from the student into what they're doing, and the lack of passion. It didn't seem like a lot of them were even very convinced about their stuff or very interested. Or they were very they were trying to be like very professional, and I'm like, hey, you're a student, like
professional.
Well, some students that dress up like they are like doing a client presentation, and they have like the whole project is like a client presentation. It might be a cultural thing too. I don't know, but
no,
I'm
it's
like,
not.
I'm like, I'm not gonna hire you today, so like I'm more interested in seeing like who are you, and that's what they should have actually been in search for during thesis project, is find themselves like as who are you going to be as an architect, because otherwise they're just going to graduate and go work for whatever firm and do whatever project and never really like have asked themselves that question. So
I mean, talking about the transition to the professional setting, that is another way to look at thesis for students. Let's say it's like, this is meant to be you're the Mona Lisa of your time in school.
I know.
You don't want to put too much pressure on yourself because it becomes paralyzing, but it's meant to be, that's it. This is my
it's creation. It's got to be the juice of your portfolio.
And anytime an employer is interviewing or reviewing portfolios, as we have done, of people who are just about to graduate or have graduated, and it's mostly student work, I'm going to look at the thesis project. If your thesis project sucks, I'm not going to hire you. Even if your fourth year stuff was let's say good. But not great. Let's say it was good. It's strong work. So his third or so his second year thesis was just barely anything. Then I'm like, why would I trust you when this is supposed to be your best work and the most intense work? Your question about presentation styles, let's say. I don't think it's a cultural thing so much. I mean, students are often told, like, you should show up, be professional.
I mean, I prefer that they're well dressed rather than wearing like mini shorts and sports bra. Like,
who's wearing mini shorts and a sports bra?
Well, apparently some students do at reviews. No, there was none yesterday, but
interesting choice.
I heard a few things yesterday.
Okay. The teachers all tell them to be like professional. Some students kind of take that too far, but mostly teachers will say that it doesn't mean you have to wear a tuxedo. Just like look clean and showered, that kind of deal, and wear appropriate clothes and whatever else, right? But what you're describing with being overly professionally dressed, to be honest, like I've been in enough reviews, like 90% of the time, most of the time, it's because the student's trying to hide something, right? Then that's the type of student and the type of presentation that drives me completely up the wall when it's so clear. It's so clear. Everyone knows it, and the student knows it, that they are putting on the show. They have rehearsed these note cards. They have like a well-spoken voice. They have a cadence, and they take time in their presentation. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I really appreciate it. I just want to thank my school. I want to thank God. I want to thank my parents. Thank you, everybody. It really means a lot to me. What are you doing, bro? You get on with the work.
We've had a few like that, and I'm like, you don't have to thank me. You have nothing to do.
Let me ask you this. The ones that you saw in the morning session that did that, how was their work?
I think there was maybe just one that did.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a good litmus test. But then,
I mean, his work wasn't the best. So
this is exactly what I'm saying. The vast majority of the time, when people do that, it's because they're bullshitting. They are that is what it is. They are bullshitting. Yeah. It's another example though. Like, why don't we call them out on it? Like, we're afraid to do that. It's so weird. And all the reviews I've been to, when that happened, like I wouldn't say give this form of feedback at this because it's the final one, but all the other ones, most of the other ones I've been to have been like mid reviews or final reviews, and they're not fifth years, so there's more school happening. When that takes place, that person, I've always been the only person to call them out and say, like, look, you're saying all this like stuff, you're doing it because it's a way to just draw, you're killing time, and you're dressing up and your work is bad. Don't dress up extra. Don't put an extra word when your work is bad. You're doing that because your work is not good and you know it. And like, I was like, oh, you can't say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? They know it. Because I've seen this guy, I've seen the same student like 12 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You get really amped up with those things. Yeah, I'm tired, and I'm tired of talking about school stuff. So can we wrap it up?
But it's also there's one of the things I didn't like about teaching. There's a kind of redundancy to it, and there are certain problems that will always exist because you're dealing with certain type of people consistently. Meaning, like there's an age range you're always dealing with, and so there tends to be certain issues that always come up, and that just gets. I don't know. It's not interesting at some point, you know, the babysitting aspect of it partially, right? Like I really don't want to spend any effort of my day at all worrying about like, is this person going to show up? Like, it's really not my job. Like, you're old enough, you're an upper division student. I don't want, even if I'm getting paid for this time, I'm not, that's not
yeah, no, that's why I'm not interested in teaching at all.
I can understand it.
That and the excuses, oh, my computer died, oh, they saw that. It's like, yeah, just be grown up.
But here's the funny thing.
Be resourceful, you know.
Here's the interesting thing, and I agree. Here's the interesting thing with that is that almost all of the problems that happen with students and their work are often the result of that stuff. Actually,
yeah,
almost solely because of that stuff. It's not because of their lack of competence or lack of skills or lack of talent. It's like almost never that. It's just the stuff you described, and that's easily overcome. Again, it goes back to the education system now, and everyone's trying to understand the ropes, learn the rules of the game so they can win the game. And that's not how you should approach learning architecture, but that's what people do because that's what you do in high school and middle school. And they take that same approach to college, and then you have this problem where they're trying to do that, and it doesn't work. And I'm concerned that if we allow ourselves as the people who are in charge and have gone through all this stuff to just cater to them, then it doesn't.
Well, I think that's the bigger issue underlying here is that the schools have got softer, you know. They got softer because, you know what, they feel really bad charging kids like and their families so much money. And then, you know, they have to deal with parents who are like not happy about what they hear from their kids because their kids are so mature that they report things to their parents. And now the parents think that they know better how the school should be run and how kids should be graded and all of that stuff. So now everybody is just complying to like, well, they're paying so much money, so let's just give them their diploma. Even if at the end they've never showed up, they've never learned anything, they've never done the work. And
that's
it's kind of like,
guess.
It's like, you know, higher education is so expensive in America, but it's also, to me, not really valuable because anybody could graduate even if you've done jack shit. So, you know, you could go to like big name schools and have money and spend your tuition, but if you've learned nothing, that doesn't mean anything. And the fact that it's still super important for some employers to look at what school you've been to, it doesn't mean anything to me because there is just so much people that come out of these schools that actually are not valuable. It doesn't mean anything. There's no value behind what they got. So I don't know. I think schools should just be much cheaper, and actually people who are interested, do the work are the ones who do graduate, and the other ones don't, and that's that.
It sounds amazingly simple and obvious, and it sounds like why would we do it any other way?
Well, it's not part of a capitalist system, so you can make money off of that.
I don't understand
right?
why school is so expensive, but I think you're probably right. It actually probably a lot of it eventually tracks, up to the fact that schools are expensive. People are paying a lot of money to go to schools, so you're basically buying a degree, and you feel like you're owed something because you're paying money for it. The school wants more money, so they're going to make people pass. And this also touches on another point of like grade inflation. And
their own success and percentage of graduating students in their own school.
Exactly.
Right? It's marketing.
Look at all of our students. They all graduate with A's and like whatever, right? And I don't think anything that we're saying, too, is like groundbreaking new information. It's just stuff that fucking no one wants to talk about out loud, right? Like the grade inflation thing. If I talk to any teacher at any architecture school, I guarantee you 100% of them would say grades are stupidly inflated. It's a problem because I can't hold my students accountable.
Yeah.
I can't fail my students. I can't even give them a B. They have to get A minuses. You know how much of a problem that is when you're trying to teach someone something when they know they're going to get an A minus no matter what they do?
Yeah. No, but that's not fair to them because they do put the work, they do show up every time, they do all of the assignments. And what is the difference between what they get versus the person who's never showed up, and return the thing like the day of and get a grade that's slightly less than what the other people have done. So
I do remember when I was a student, grades were for sure inflated. And when grades have been inflated probably for quite some time now, but there was that feeling amongst my peers. Like we were in studio working, and I was always part of the group that was always there. But there's a subgroup who's there like pretty often, but not all the time. They were healthier and smarter and more organized, I think. But like all the students who worked like hard, and then you have like one or two in the class who just like didn't do anything, and they would pass, and you would see them. Oh shit! They made it to next quarter. They made it like all through these like 4 whatever years, and there was definitely a feeling of resentment toward that individual. Fuck them. And also just in general, it's like
through the system. I mean,
none of us were doing what we were doing because of grades. Like we just wanted to be. We chose to be there late at night. We chose to be dedicated. We chose it because we just love the work. Okay. But still, we're humans. Part of us is like, what? But this is not. I know this can't be fair. Like, what is this? But I think you're right. Actually, I think it does track all the way back up to basically the money of it and everything else.
Of course, I mean,
it's just
think about how many millions of dollars universities get through every year, right? Like,
it is a broken education system on both sides. Because for students who aren't wealthy, how do you afford it? For the students that are wealthy, they're not getting the education they deserve. And for the teachers, it doesn't work either. So really, it is truly broken on both sides. It doesn't make any sense. And again, all the teachers feel this way. They all feel like powerless. They have it. And also, it's, I think, easy to forget, like full-time faculty, a lot of them, this is their passion. Their passion is architecture, and it's teaching. Sometimes it's first and foremost teaching. It's teaching. That's what they love. They love helping people. They love people helping them so they can become more successful than they ever were and going and doing great things and learning. That's what they want. And I think with the way it all works now, they're doing that with one arm tied behind their back, and they're stuck. And I feel bad for them when I hear these stories. I don't know. So are you going to be a teacher? Is that
never?
What if there was a school where the grading system was accurate? That might be actually the biggest thing. The money is,
it's actually hard to grade students accurately. Especially, the French system is interesting too because you get graded between 0 and 20. There's a wide range. It's not like A, B, C, or D, A minus, or whatever nuance that implies. It's like, no, there is really bad, there is really good, there is just in the middle, what makes you pass toward the good side. Yeah. And then there is still 10 points between that middle mark to the grade line. The middle is 10. For you to pass a class, you have to get at least a 10.
So
if you get a 9.5, she doesn't. You could also get halvesies, so yeah.
Wow, halvesies. That would suck to get a 9.5. Yeah. So I'm trying to understand. I want to know, like, what does a 10 project look like?
It's not good.
Oh, but it's a passing project.
I mean, you've probably done the assignments.
You did the work.
You've probably done the assignment, but it's not good. Like, it's not good.
Your face. People should see your face.
It's not good.
Okay.
If you get between like a 14 and a 15, it has a potential to get somewhere.
A potential to get somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's better, right?
Okay.
And then if you're anywhere between 14 and 20, then it's good.
Wait, you just said what? Okay, you said 14 and 15 is like getting somewhere.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
And if you get anything above that, it's pretty good.
Above a 15, okay. Are you confused because you said 14 and 15 is like getting somewhere, then you said 14 to 20 is really good.
Well, I mean 14, 15. Yeah, I mean 15 is it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you saying this because you got yourself 15, so you want to make sure that you're in the good category?
No, I mean, I'm trying to remember like but nobody gets a 20 or even an 18.
Really?
I mean, but again, possibly, but like on average, 18, 20, not really. 17, maybe.
Okay, so if you did the work, but it's not good. Okay, let's say like you've seen students who they do the work, but they're not talented, but they have the work. It's there. It's pinned up. And it's been, they've worked on it, but it's not good. That's like a 10.
Yeah.
Okay. And 15 means like you got some skill. 14 means you got some skill. And like 16
is like
means like it's a really good project.
And then maybe you have an amazing project, you can get like a 17 or maybe an 18, but that's like kind of pushing it. Nobody ever gets an 18 or a 20 on architecture.
Okay, I gotcha. So
unless you're a god and you've done like something that's never been done before.
In addition to my project, you are blessed with eternal life.
Yeah, no.
20!
I mean, that might happen, but it's like really rare.
Once every 10 years
it's
or
like
something.
One student in a whole promotion. Like it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. You mean whole class? Like there's maybe 118.
By class, you mean like
the graduating like the body.
Yeah,
okay.
We call that a promotion.
Okay, so like the top one, if there is one that year, is like an 18, and all the like really solid projects, like really good ones, are like 16.
But
okay,
something like that.
Okay, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like a more plausible scale.
And if you've done like a third of the assignment and you're presenting that, I don't know, maybe you get an 8. Like it's not gonna fly.
Gotcha. That sounds like a much more.
But there is like, have you done the amount of stuff like all the deliverables versus not? How have you been executing them? Like, is it clean? Is it like really gross drawings? Nobody can read them. Like the graphics terrible. Like there's different layers to the grades, right? It's not just about returning the assignment. It's about everything.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that the numerical system makes a lot more sense than the letters because...
to me, it's easier to understand.
Well, the letters do translate back to percentages.
Right? Oh. But it's confusing.
Well, not percentages, actually. It's not a percentage, but it's 0 to 100, so it could be understood as a percentage.
But why using letters if it's a percentage?
I have no idea where they... I have no idea where it came from.
It's fucked up anyway.
But 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 90 is B, 70 to 79.99, is C. A D is the 60 range, and anything below 60 is an F.
Oh, okay. Well, so most of the people we've seen are probably like a C.
If we look at the numerical scale of like the 60 range, which translates to your case of being like a 12, that means they did the work and were just slightly above just doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw yesterday, it's probably...
It was also really all
most of them are probably like around 12 or 13. There's maybe a 15, the two that floated around.
Okay.
I think that's how I would put it. And there is a few below 10.
Yeah. It was also different because we looked at a bunch of different studios, so the requirements are different. I want to be fair about that. Yeah. But the numerical system, as you outlined it, 0 to 20 makes more sense to me than what we do. But again, for reference, like everyone gets an A minus.
Yeah, no, that makes no sense.
A B plus.
No sense at all.
Yeah,
no sense at all.
It's a problem.
But they should feel bad about getting A or A minus if they've done not good work.
It's I kind of like the idea though that you have a 0 to 20 scale, and the 18, 19, and 20. Like an 18 maybe happens once a year. The 19, 20 just like it doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality. I think that's more reflective of like the truth. Like a 19 and 20 project, like unless it'd have
unless
to be
it's
something.
Your 9th year in school.
Exactly. You'd have to be like somehow. What are you, a full architect already? How did you do this? Then it would be 19 or 20. But short of that, it's not. I was talking to someone the other night about all these things, and I thought they made a very interesting point. The whole reason for these types of projects, the 5th-year projects, and why they're special, or any project actually, to be honest, but the reason of it is that you're supposed to come up with some kind of question again and an argument to support your answer. And as a student, you should learn and understand that you have to present those things, but also that you're going to be open to criticism, and people are going to poke at all the stuff you've done, poke at your question and poke at your answer and poke at your architecture, which is a representation of all those things. And that you have to be prepared for those questions. And they also said something interesting, which is that no matter what you produce and no matter what you do, someone will argue against it. Which is to say that, it's not to say that you shouldn't care about your work and you shouldn't fight for your work. Be like, oh, well, I'm never going to win, so why bother? It's not that. It's that's just the nature of architecture. It's the nature of producing anything and putting it out in the world. It's going to be critiqued in that way, and you have to be prepared and able and willing and interested in fighting for it and listening to feedback and learning from feedback. And that is one of the most important skill sets to have learned, because that's a perfect description of what happens in, quote, the real world in many different settings. Clients, developers, other architects, employees, employer, like across the board, everywhere you go, it's going to be exactly that. And if you don't have that skill set, or you don't even had that practice and gone through that arena of talking, then it doesn't work. But that's also why I like the scale that you're mentioning, because it's like it clearly states that even if your work is extremely good, someone's going to disagree with it, and that's the nature of it. Yeah. That's the truth. That is the reality. And if we're not operating that way, then we're just lying. We're putting ourselves into a little nice little bubble, a little college bubble, right? Where we get like little food cards and we get free food and we're using a card, a little bubble that we live in.
Yep. Well, wait until that bubble is going to pop.
I know. Or all those little bubble citizens go out into the world with their bubble ideas.
Is going to be exploded. Yep, that's the truth. Anyway, all right.
Go, okay, give us a nice conclusion and then an outro.
So this is an after hour that actually turned out talking again about architecture. This is to tell you how exciting and varied our lives are. But thanks for listening to this one anyway, despite the sleepy tones. If you like what we do, please follow us on the social media platform, which is Instagram. You can also find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and our website, secondstudiopod.com. We have the hotline. I forgot the number.
Come on.
We have the hotline 213-222-6950. You can send a text message or leave a voicemail if you have anything you want to share or ask, or topics that you want us to talk about. We could do that. And what else? That's it.
Was there anything else?
No, that's it. There's more episodes coming out.
Wait. Hey, trying to cut off the recording.
You take too long. I'm tired.
I take too long.
I'm tired.
I'm trying to fill in all these gaps, man, but just rambling on. I'm just...
complaining again. Gosh, yeah. Okay. That's my life, dealing with a complaining David. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for listening, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
There's something else.
Bye-bye. Bye. Adios. Bye-bye.
Okay, later.